Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Mr. Leclerc again. This time we're on page 42, looking at letter D. Cosecant t equals 2. So before we start, we need to remember what cosecant is. So let's go to page 34. Cosecant, by definition, is 1 over the y-coordinate, or 1 over sine, since y is the same as sine. So let's go ahead and write that on page 42. So cosecant equals 1 over y, or 1 over sine. And in this case, cosecant is 2, so we can just set this equal to 2. Okay. So what this is saying is 1 divided by some value of y, or sine, equals 2. To figure out what that value of y, or sine, is, we can just set 1 over y, or 1 over sine, equal to 2. So let's go ahead and set 1 over y equal to 2. Since we're more familiar with looking at variables. Okay, 1 over y equals 2. Now we can just solve it like we would a regular equation. We can set 2 over 1, we can cross multiply. That gives us 2y equals 1. Now we can divide both sides by 2 in order to get y by itself. That gives us y equals 1/2. Or sine equals 1/2. Okay, so now all we need to do is figure out what angle sine equals 1/2 at on the unit circle. So let's take a look at the unit circle. So sine is 1/2 at 30 degrees. And remember, we should be looking at the first two quadrants because we're looking at for positive 1/2. Y, or sine, is positive in quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. So 30 degrees, or pi over 6 radians, sine is 1/2. That tells us t can equal 30 degrees, or pi over 6 radians. Go ahead and pause the video. Look for one more point on the unit circle where sine is 1/2. Okay, let's come back. Should have found sine being 1/2 at 150 degrees, or 5 pi over 6 radians. That tells us t can also equal 150 degrees, or 5 pi over 6 radians. Because at 30 degrees, sine is 1/2, and 150 degrees, sine is 1/2. That makes sense, because when we put sine as 1/2, we get 1 divided by 1/2, and that's 2. So cosecant equals 2 at 30 degrees, or 150 degrees, or pi over 6 radians, or 5 pi over 6 radians. Now all we have left to do is draw the reference triangles. So go ahead and pause the video and try to draw the reference triangles for 30 degrees and 150 degrees. Okay, let's come back. So to draw the reference triangle for 30 degrees, remember we should be highlighting the terminal side for 30 degrees and connecting it to our initial side, or our x-axis. And that's our reference triangle for 30 degrees. Let's go ahead and sketch that on page 42. Okay. And now for our reference triangle for 150 degrees. Again, we connect our terminal side to our initial side, or the x-axis. Perfect. I'll sketch that on page 42. And that's it. We drew both of our reference triangles for 30 degrees, or pi over 6 radians, and 150 degrees, or 5 pi over 6 radians. And we figure out that cosecant equals 2, where sine equals 1/2, which is at 30 degrees, or pi over 6 radians, and 150 degrees, or 5 pi over 6 radians. In the next video, I'll go over problem E. Until then, see ya.